Hello friends, it's Allison Vanderslice and thanks for joining me today. We're going to be making a fun New Year's pop-up card using a January 2020 cat calendar. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's our supplies that we're going to be using, plus a light blue sheet of cardstock that is kind of shown there in the picture. We will also need some types of adhesive. I'm going to be using liquid glue and also tear tape. Right now I'm going to cut that light blue cardstock at 4 1/4 inches. And then I'm going to rotate it and score it at 5 1/2 inches. So this is going to be my standard A2 card base. Using the other half of the 4 1/4 inches, we're going to cut at 3 1/2 inches. Leaving it at that same position, we're going to score at 3 1/4 inches, 1 1/2 inches, 2 1/4 inches, and 3 inches. This is going to leave a 1/2 inch left over for our adhesive. Now I'm going to take my bone folder and crease all of those folds so that way they are nice and crisp and good to go for when we put the fun fold together. I'm going to fold the box up and here's what it's going to look like. I'm now taking my tear tape and I'm going to put it on the 1/2 inch flap and then press it down to make sure that it's easy to remove that backing. I'm using my take your pick tool from Stampin' Up and then I'm going to pull up that backing, fold it over, and then just close that shut, and we have our box for that pop-up mechanism. And here's what it's going to look like inside of the card. Now it's recommended to use the same color cardstock so it blends in a little bit easier, but you can use whatever color or pattern paper if you want to. We're going to spice it up a little bit when we get into the inside portion of the card. What I just did is I took a piece of white cardstock and I put a piece of washi tape on the back of it so it doesn't slide around, and I put it down on just a spare sheet of paper. I then put my stencil over top with some washi tape to hold that down. I got these fun new blending brushes for Christmas and I really enjoyed working with them. It's a lot easier to do bigger pieces with a blending brush instead of that little finger dauber that I would normally use. Here I'm just taking different shades of blue to match the card front and the blue shades on the inside with the cat calendar. And I'm just going through and dabbing the ink, dabbing off a little excess ink on the scrap paper, and then blending around. Anytime I want to change colors, I wipe it off on the paper towel next to me on the right hand side. And I just go through that process with all 3 inks until I like what it looks like. And here's the fun part of removing the stencil to see what you have created with the ink blending. I wanted to close up those inks because I knew I would get my hand in it, and here's what it looks like close up. Make sure you wipe off your stencil. I'm going to be using just a baby wipe and getting that ink off of there. You can set it aside if you want to, but I've learned the hard way of not cleaning it up right away and forgetting about it. Here is the cat calendar for January 2020. I'm going to be using that orange cat, the little sand timer, and then also the balloons from the top right. I'm going to trim that cardstock to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches to fit the card front to give a nice frame around it. I'm going to take my liquid glue and put that onto the card front and then adhere that to the card base. Does anybody else struggle to pick these papers up, or is it just me? Check to make sure that you're putting on your card front the right way, especially if your paper that you're adhering has a specific pattern that needs to be facing the correct way. Now I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock and I'm going to see where I want those balloons. My original intention was to put it on the white cardstock where the greetings would go and where you would sign, but it didn't give a lot of space. And then I thought if I would put it on the top of the card, it would add more character and depth to our little pop-up scene. So that's what I end up doing. I'm going to put my liquid glue or any adhesive that you want on the back of it, and I'm going to adhere it down to the top of my card front on the inside. Now I'm going to take the excess strip from our front that was stenciled. I'm going to put some liquid glue on it and adhere it to the bottom portion of that white cardstock we're going to put on the inside. We're going to trim off the excess. I like to flip it over so I'm cutting from the back side. I think that gives it a cleaner cut. And that's what it looks like. We're going to use our liquid glue again, put that down, and then adhere that to the inside of our card base. Now we're going to decorate the front of the card. For the little timer, I'm going to be using a piece of foam adhesive. I'm going to put liquid glue on the side that doesn't have the adhesive and put that down onto the timer. Then we're going to look and see what it looks like. My original intention was just that, but I thought it needed something more. So I took the little pieces from the bottom portion of the January 2020 cat calendar and cut a slice where the confetti and the ribbon were just on the floor. And I made a strip so it would go all the way across the card front. I'll put the liquid glue down on that and then adhere that to the card front. Then I'll remove the backing from the timer, put a little bit of liquid glue onto that so that way if I need to wiggle it around I can. And then I'll put that down where I want it onto the card front. Going to trim up the excess from that additional strip, and again I cut from the back side for a cleaner cut, and here's what the front looks like, and that's what our inside looks like. Now I'm going to take a thicker tear tape and I'm going to use my reversible tweezers to help me get that off. I'm going to put that onto our box that we created. And I like to put this on the seam side, and that will be the bottom. So that way we know that it's not going to be visible to anybody. We'll remove the adhesive backing. And I'm going to rotate my card so it's easier for me to place this down. The adhesive part is going to go close to the seam or our score line. And make sure that you give a little bit of space. So don't put it directly on it or it's not going to fold nicely. Press it down and that's what it's going to look like. Now I'm going to take some fun foam stars that have adhesive already on the back of them and some laminator sheets that I have used from school, and I'm going to slice the laminator sheets so that way we have just little strips and attach the stars to them. So I'm going to show you how to do that with the silver one. I already have the laminator strip cut. I'm going to just remove a portion of the backing for the adhesive. So using those reversible tweezers, I'm just going to move a little bit of that adhesive, and then I'm going to insert that strip and then put the backing back down on the adhesive to hold it in place. I did this so I didn't have to worry about trying to cover up all of the extra adhesive onto the star. That way it doesn't stick onto our card when we close it. Now I'm going through to make sure that our stars and the cat fit when we close the card front, since it will be moving up and down. The gold star didn't fit, so I had to trim it, and I think I had to trim a couple of the other stars. I also want to make sure that they're different lengths, so that way we have some depth to the pop-up when we get there. Now I'm adding some of the tear tape to the bottom of the laminator strips with the stars on it. I'm going to remove the backing and then adhere it to the box. Now remember that you want to attach it to the portion that is closer to the bottom of the card where you're going to sign and write your message. The one that's closer to the top of the card is going to be the top of the box. So if you put it there, it's going to stick out funny and it won't close right. So make sure you're doing that. I'm just going to, again, take off the backing and put down stars where I would like them. And then again, they're going to be different heights to add some depth and character to the pop-up. There I realized I wanted to add a little bit more to our pop-up box. So I found these orange strips that I had from a previous card that I made. And I'm just going to put some liquid glue and put that in the center of that portion of the box. And then you'll see me do the same thing for the top section of the box as well. Now I'm going to take some tear tape, put that onto the back of the cat. And again, remember, don't go too high because it only has the 1/2 inch of space to adhere to. We don't want to put too much on or it will stick to the top of the card. We'll remove the backing and place it down where we want it. And that's all the inside that we're going to add for decoration. If you want to, you can do something to the back of those, but I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to take my bigger tear tape and put that down onto the back portion of the box, remove the backing, and then I'm just going to close the card. And that will adhere it shut. And then our pop-up card is all finished. I wanted to add just a little bit more to the front of the card. So now I'm going to take the metallic pearl puffy paint or the fabric paint from Arteza. And I am just going to test it out before I do it on my card because you don't want any air bubbles. And this one actually worked the best out of all the ones that I've tried so far. So here's me zoomed in. I just took the fabric paint and I put a blob where all of the points met for our stencil. This is just going to add a different texture, character, depth to our card, and I really liked it. I haven't really used these too much, but I want to try to incorporate them more with our cards this year. Make sure you let this dry at least 6 hours. I'm sending mine in the mail, so I let it dry for 24 hours before I even wrote anything on the inside. Here's what that pop-up card looks like again in action, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, make sure to give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of my content, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.